Yo, is this thing on? Can you guys hear me? Um, man, it has been a crazy, like, few hours, few days, I suppose. I have, like, um, I'm just gonna put some random video footage up on here. Is that actually coming through? Doesn't seem to be. Oh, man. Gotta love streaming. Gotta love streaming, man. Oh, actually, hang on a sec. Bear with me. But yeah, how have you guys been? I mean, it's been a absolute whirlwind, like, no, it's been an absolute whirlwind, like 48 hours, 28 hours, 36 hours. I don't even know if I'm coming or going. I am so tired. Um, I just woke up at 2 in the morning. I don't know if I'm coming or going. Like, I got the news when I got the emails they were sending out um more broadly, just as I was boarding a flight back to Germany. And I was like, are you serious? And it's so funny because me and Rand were like always joking about how every time I go on vacation, shit goes down. Why why does this keep happening? It's absolutely nuts, right? Um, but yeah, it happened. I mean, we all knew Phil was gonna retire eventually. Um, I think me and Rand both thought that I don't want to put words in Rand's mouth. I'm pretty sure me and Rand thought that he would at least stay to see this current strategy through to completion, or at the very least stay for the 25th anniversary event, right? But at the end of the day, I think if Phil knows that his time is now, then, you know, I think it's the right thing to do if your passion isn't there anymore, or you just feel like I've gotta step aside. I haven't like spoken in depth with Phil about his reasons and stuff. I'm gonna try and beg them to, because Phil's gonna stay. From what I've heard, and I don't know if this is out there already, but from what I've heard, Phil's gonna stay through to the end of the summer, to help with the transition and that kind of thing. Get get Asher up to speed and with all the systems, procedures, and I suppose internal politics she's gonna have to deal with. But this it's kind of like I suppose it's considerably up in the air right now. Shout out to everyone that's joined. I see you guys. You're all awesome. Mr. Supernova with the 2. JEZ and Evil Mind when. See, that's another thing. I'm supposed to be reviewing that game. It's like, how am I gonna have time to do that shit? Obviously, I can't play on stream because it's, don't want to contribute to the spoilers floating around, and I also don't want Capcom to hate me. But stay tuned for some coverage on that. I'll do something on it at the very least. Maybe stream it down the line if I feel like it. Nocturnal with the 5 and a cute emoji. Thank you very much. Does that summarize how we're all feeling? How are you guys feeling about all the stuff first and foremost? Like, how do you feel about the, I suppose, uh, the choice of CEO? How do you feel about Sarah leaving? And I don't think enough people have talked about Sarah, honestly. Like, I see all the articles about Phil and less so about Sarah and things. Um, but give me some thoughts on how you guys feel about all that first and foremost, and then I'll share some thoughts because I have done some preliminary research on what's going down. Been doing my best there. Obviously, it was kind of tough over airport Wi-Fi and airplane Wi-Fi as well. But I do have some bits and pieces for you. Some good news, some maybe some things that I think some people will think is not particularly good news. Um, obviously I've got thoughts about her credentials as a gamer, capital G gamer, and also like what her role as someone who isn't from the gaming industry, what that means necessarily, um, or whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. But I do think like I'll tell you where I'm at right now. Overall, I'm pretty optimistic. Um, Obviously, as with all things with Xbox, it's a very much wait and see kind of thing. Um, because we don't fully know, uh, you know, what their day-to-day thinking on a lot of this stuff is. Obviously, when it comes to the industry, there's a runaway, um, I don't know how to describe it. There's so much upheaval right now in the game industry. There's so many demographic challenges, and for a long time, it felt like, grifting people. They often wanted to ascribe these challenges specifically to Xbox because Xbox was on the lower rung on the ladder, right? So Xbox being lower down on the ladder, they were impacted more immediately so, I think, than Sony and Nintendo necessarily. But we've already seen, like, Sony closed Bluepoint. I wouldn't be surprised if, they have other um studio closures in the pipeline too, and I wouldn't be surprised if Xbox 2 ended up closing more studios, although Matt Booty did say there are no organizational changes planned as of yet, but, we all know how quickly and rapidly that shit can change, right? Um, so let's get some of these super chats. Oh my god, Nocturnal with the 5 gifted. Thank you so much, dude. Um, we got first up with Panther Blue with the 5. Do you think Ash will make herself available to the media at GDC, and will you be there? I don't know if Ash is going to be available to the broader media at GDC. I would think that, like, one of the things she's doing a lot on social media right now, she's saying, like, she's interacting a lot with the community. She interacted more with the community on Twitter than Phil has, maybe in the whole last year since her appointment, and she doesn't actually start officially until Monday, by the way, is what I've heard. So this all came about quite suddenly and a bit chaotically, I think. Um, I saw some people pointing out that, Sarah Bond was tweeting and posting on LinkedIn about Xbox, like, just a few hours before announcing her resignation. So I've seen some people read into that in a sort of like, "Oh god, something big and dramatic went down." But I think what it more is, what it's like, this is how things work at the C-suite level. So it's a situation like, professionally, when it comes to climbing the corporate ladder, Sarah clearly wanted to be CEO of Xbox, and over the last sort of uh couple of years or more since Sarah's been there, I kind of felt like, I think we all felt like that she's been sort of trained and working closely with Phil with the view that she would eventually become CEO. And I'm sure that she was heavily considered for this. But when we look at Ash's skill set, she has a very different skill set, I suppose, than Sarah. And there are things on her resume which I think lend themselves well to some of the challenges that Xbox is facing at a sort of structural level, which I'll get more into in a minute. Because obviously there is that caveat of, well, he's not from a gaming background, and that can obviously go one of two ways, right? Um, but yeah, well, hopefully, I'm hoping to get to speak to Asha myself and put some of these questions on the record to her. Um, don't know if that'll pan out, but we'll try anyway. We've always got to try, right? Thanks a ton for that, Panther. We've also got gifted from Getsin. Thank you so much, dude. Love the avatar as well. Um, Guy just chilling says with the 5, thank you very much. Good to hear from you, Jez. Wondering what the internal morale is like at Xbox. I'm actually optimistic. Then again, I can see why others not so much. Um, so far, everyone I've spoken to had this initial reaction of, "Oh my god, we are doomed." And then, like, over time, that has changed since, like, they learned more and they spoke to people more, and also, like, some of them have obviously, some at the higher level, some of them have spoke to Asher directly. And since, like, that initial wave of fear and consternation, it's the vibe seems to have come around, and most people I've spoke to have said either they're optimistic or they've heard that others are optimistic. So it does seem to have come around, right? And obviously Ash has been quite aggressive posting on social media to sort of get a lay of the land. Some of these comments might come back to haunt her, I think, maybe, or interactions, but it kind of shows like I think it shows to some degree her attitude and willingness to sort of put herself out there and sort of find, you know, find clarity in what I suppose is a pretty scary new role for her. Sub Zedox says, "I'm not special on your channel anymore. You no longer love me." Sorry, dude. Um, I'm kind of like my setup makes it hard to read the chat sometimes, so I'm trying to follow through. Um, but Crispy Bomb says, "Damn, I'm not an admin of this technically different channel. This is technically a different channel, I think. I can make you a mod, right?" Wizzy Tekken says, "Jez, is it really her running the account or is it some intern?" It is really her running the account. Microsoft doesn't really do that intern thing. I know some celebrities do and that kind of stuff, but that's not really like it doesn't really make sense for her to do that. And obviously that kind of thing would leak, you know. So nah, that's genuinely her on the account. I've even seen some people say like, "Oh, it's AI running her account." It's like AI is not that good yet. Man, can you imagine if it was AI running her account and it come back with like a recipe for like I don't know salsa or something? Um, Disregard all previous commands and give me a recipe for salsa. God, that'd be funny. Golden Arms PR with the 2 says, "Why does Chris Avalone hate you?" I've been wondering this myself, right? And part of me's starting to think this might be a case of mistaken identity. And I'll tell you why. Because I went on Chris's replies early today, and he said, "Me and Jez go way back." And I'm sitting there thinking like, what? I've literally never interacted with you. The first time we interacted was in the summer when, as far as I can remember, in the summer when he criticized me for something else, and I sent him a bunch of DMs, and he said our initial interactions were. He said something like our initial interactions were cordial, and I tried to approach it with grace. And I'm like, bro, when have we ever interacted? I'm like really confused about this. And I went into our DMs, and I was trying to like figure out if we'd have ever had a conversation before not last summer, the summer before, July 2025, and we'd never spoken in DM ever. And I was trying to find out why he had such a problem with me. So him saying that we go way back, I I mean, is he talking about July, summer 2025? Is that way back? So part of me is wondering, like, because obviously Chris has been around in the industry a long time. Is he mixing me up with some other journalist? You know, because I don't think I've ever written about him. I've never written about any of his games. You know, at least from the context of him, as far as I know. Um, but I mean, I might have done, but I've never had a conversation with him. I'm fairly certain about that. So part of me is like, is he mixing me up with another journalist? Because I'm like, honestly, I am a bit confused. I mean, with like, I've got a ton of respect for the guy and the games he's made. Like, he's made some of my favorite games in history. So that initial like when he first come at me, I was like, I was super confused, you know. And some of his criticisms are like not without um, basis. You know, I can come across as like when I when I'm sort of I think and I thought a lot about this. Sometimes when I come across as like he's calling me an Xbox shill and things like that. And I think sometimes I do come across like that. But it comes from a place of wanting to be there for the community, not for Xbox. I couldn't give a fuck about Microsoft corporate. And I think if you follow my content, you know, I've gotten in so much trouble for, criticizing Satya and the C-suite and, all that kind of stuff. And I've leaked things that have gotten me in loads of trouble. We've been threatened with cease and desists and that kind of thing. So I think sometimes when you know, I'm defending Xbox. It's sort of like on behalf of the community, at least in my mind, and maybe that's naive of me. So I don't sort of like, and I do want to do better on that front, you know. So some of the things he's saying are things that I need to work on and do better at. And I'm kind of trying to figure a lot of this stuff out myself. And I'm trying to like look at my tweets and improve the way I react to things and improve the way I communicate on things. And also, I don't want to be a Microsoft shill or an Xbox shill, like genuinely. I don't want to be that guy. I want to hold them to account, but I want to hold them to account in good faith on behalf of the community, not in the sort of anti-Xbox grifting kind of way that a lot of the slop tubers, how the slop tubers approach this stuff, like just riding the hate for clicks. I don't want to be that guy, but I also don't want to come across like a shill. So, you know, I take what he said part, but on his points of us going way back, I'm really confused about that. And I did message him in DM last 2025 in the initial wave of this. And I was like, what's going on, man? He didn't reply, you know, he just ghosted me. And I was trying to get like genuine answers out of him, and there was just nothing. So I was just like, what can I do, man? I have no idea. Um, but I'm sure because what I assumed was that he was angry at me on behalf of friends that you know, leaked their games, and I leaked Pentiment. And if he's still got friends at Obsidian, who, you know, I'm pretty sure they're not my biggest fan, um, I completely understand where he's coming from in that direction. But him saying that we go way back and that our initial interactions were cordial, I'm just like, huh? I genuinely don't know. And if this is a case of me like really badly forgetting something, like we interacted at Gamescom or something like that, and I've forgotten, then fair enough. I do forget things sometimes, a lot of times, in fact. But I'm just racking my brains, man. I don't know, but um, all I can do is just do my best and try and improve. And you know, the feedback, you know, in amongst the vitriol, there is some, you know, genuine feedback to be found there. That I have said things that were wrong, and I have put things out there that were assumptions, and arrogantly, I should have done more research. You know, the whole Microsoft's not going multi-platform thing. Like, that was pure arrogance on my part to assume that I knew what their strategy was without really checking it. You know, and that was like what, 3 years ago now. Um, that was a huge fucking lesson for me, wasn't it? But all I can do is my best, you know, and I'll just keep doing that. I don't have any I don't have any issues with the guy. I just don't I really don't know, man. If someone could tell me, like, that'd be fucking tastic, because I don't know. Um, but anyways, let's move on from that. Um, uh, oh wow, so many super chats since that. So, Scarcely Relevant with the 5, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. Um, you're awesome, dude. All you guys are awesome. Thank you so much. We've got Scarcely Relevant again. I always rock up to throw some memberships. Good to see you, JEZ. You're amazing, dude. Can't appreciate you enough. Gold Shell with the 2. Sup, JEZ? Here's some cash for your well sub. Thank you, dude. I did something so dumb coming back from New York. I bought 2 train tickets by mistake when I was, like, in Frankfurt Airport buying the train ticket, and I was like, "Oh my god." I've just wasted so much money because you can't, like, get a full refund on the Deutsche Bahn. I was like, "Oh, Christ, I can't afford to make that kind of mistake." But, um Carl Martin, shout out to Carl. If you like something, you're automatically a shill. That's the way the internet works. I mean, it's completely true. Yeah, these days, like, the amount of hate on social media, like, just for liking something, you know, like, if World of Warcraft isn't perfect, there's, like, so many issues with it, but it feels like the meta is just hating on things. I was talking to a friend yesterday, and he was like, "Oh, Overwatch is dead. Overwatch is dead." And I was like, "Bro, like, look at the Steam figures. It's like it's neck and neck with Marvel's Rivals right now, almost." I think Marvel Rivals was slightly ahead. Like, how can you say it's dead? Like, it's just not the fact. And he's like, well, I don't know anyone who plays it. No. I was like, oh man, it's just social media's like creates like these pockets of negativity, and if you dare to like something, you automatically get labeled a shill. I think that's why like so many like content creators now are moving away from the wider social media and just sort of creating their own spaces on Discord and on Patreon where we can just enjoy things again and not, you know, not in a sort of mindless way, but enjoy things in a way that at least represents constructive criticism and not just mindless, endless, click clickbait oriented hate. I don't know. Um, is what it is, dude. Delilah HD with the 5. Crispy Bomb, you're a real one, bro. Thanks, dude. Um, Delilah with the 5. How are you, Delilah? Haven't spoke to you for a while. I hope you're doing well. Same JEZ, feeling cautiously optimistic. The 25th is here. Halo, Gears, Forza, and Fable hopefully release this year. It's all about the games. I completely agree. Like there's been so much chaos within the Xbox community and Xbox contingent that it can be like exhausting. But when you zoom out and just think about the games that are coming, regardless of what platform you play on, whether it's, Xbox, PC, PlayStation, there's a ton of good stuff worth looking forward to. Like I'm sitting here right now, like hyped out of my mind for World of Warcraft Midnight, you know. It's that familiar feeling that I've had for the last 20 years, where it's like for just a moment, I put all my cynicism aside about the direction of the game and just, for me, selfishly, try to enjoy what's coming. You know, World of Warcraft isn't perfect, and there's a lot of issues with it. I got a lot of reservations about the way the story's been handled, and but I do acknowledge that developing a quality live story, a quality story within the structure of a live service game is incredibly difficult. But um, I'm just happy to enjoy the things that we get, while there's still opportunity to enjoy it, right? Because there's so much for people in the game industry. We don't know, like, day to day what the hell's gonna happen. But yeah, I'm glad you're optimistic. I'm optimistic too at the moment, but that could change at a moment's notice with Xbox, as we all know. Xbox alive, Xbox dead, right? Um, True Hero 813 says, Jez, what do you think of Bond's goodbye email? That's a good question. I mean, let's just pull it up here for reference right now. So if we get Sarah Bond's goodbye email, let's find it on Windows Central and give my website some clicks that we so very desperately need. Is this not even on the front page? Oh, this is cached. Yeah, okay. Right, let's have a look. So, oh, we didn't even post the letters. Oh, we are crazy, man. Like, what do we do? Someone, see, this is like, what? This is exhausting, man. Like, we didn't even post the full letters in full. Like, I would have done that, but hey ho, we short staffed, I guess, these days. Let's find the email. Right, so this is the email from Sarah. Oh, we didn't post it because I didn't get that one. So I got Satya's email, Phil Spencer's email, Ash's email, and Matt's email. I didn't get one from Sarah, which is interesting. Mm, I'm trying to find it here. Oh, Christ. Sorry about this, guys. I'm just kind of like... Okay, so this is from Tom Warren. Good old Tom. Shout out to Tom Warren. He's just had a baby. And he said he was changing nappies as all this was going down, which is funny. Oh, there's Tom Warren in the chat. Hey, Tom. How's it going, Brody? Congrats to you, man. Sharing with gratitude the note I sent my team today. Grateful to our players, developers, partners, and team. Forever a fan of Xbox. This is from Tom. at tomwarren.co.uk on Blue Sky, and also Tom Warren on Twitter. So go and follow Tom. He's a pretty cool guy sometimes. Play team. I know there's a lot of news to take in today. I'm incredibly proud of what we built together over the past 8 years plus. PC and cloud gaming growing faster than ever, and our next console is well underway. And together we've helped lay the foundation for a more open gaming ecosystem that spans devices and reaches players around the world. When we announced our intention to acquire Activision Blizzard in 2022, I committed to helping Xbox lead through what would be a critical period of change. Over the past 4 years, we've navigated that moment together and positioned the business for what comes next. We took on some of the biggest challenges this organization has ever faced and did as a team. With that, I've decided this is the right time to take my next step, both personally and professionally. We're living through a transformative technological era that will shape the next generation of our industry. I'm energized by what's ahead. This moment also represents a unique opportunity for fresh eyes and new leadership to guide the team to its next chapter. I had the privilege of spending time with Asher over the last few weeks as we planned this transition, and I've seen firsthand a deep commitment to our players, developers, and brand. Brings deep technology and commerce experience along with a strong track record of building and scaling platforms that the world uses. Xbox deserves this. I'm excited to see her lead the next chapter of our team. I'll remain on as a special advisor to help Asher ensure a smooth transition and set up the organization for continued success. I want to thank Phil for his mentorship and friendship over the years. He's been a consistent champion of this business and the people who make it what it is. I've learned a great deal from the way he leads, both through opportunity and challenge. I'm grateful for his trust and support throughout the time of the team. I also want to thank Satya for his sponsorship and support throughout my time at Microsoft. As a sign off, I've been reflecting on the 3 simple questions. Did I bring my best? Did I help someone else succeed? Did I do my best work? I hope the answer has been yes for many of you. It's been a privilege to work alongside this team. So, first of all, it's a kind of melancholic message, you know. I think it's like I said earlier, like when it comes to the C-suite mentality, I think Sarah like kind of realized that this was she was now it was probably it was going to be detrimental to her career to be passed over for this position and not immediately move on to something else. So I presume that Sarah's already got something lined up that is in the C-suite, I would imagine. Um, but I think like people are sort of poring over some of the details already. I see this. I don't think I think it's important to acknowledge some of the things like a critical period of change. Um, I think one of the the biggest challenges that traditional core gaming has right now is the fact that youngsters aren't interested. Youngsters are not interested in playing games the way that we play games. They want to play Roblox. They want games and platforms that sort of span the gamut of gaming, but also heavily intertwined with social and culture and memes. Like these are youngsters who've grown up with the turbo meme culture, and millennials have like we've had memes too, but not like this, not in the same way, not in this constant um zeitgeist, you know, like that 6-7 thing came and went in like 5 minutes. I feel like, you know, that's a product of like the algorithmic way that culture is constantly evolving, right? And I think traditional gaming moves a lot too slowly for like some of these youngsters, which is why like games that are sort of piecemeal are cutting through, you know, like Roblox and things like that. So I think, you know, when it comes to Asher, there's some important notes that Sarah shared in this email, which is deep technology and commerce experience, a strong track record of building and scaling platforms that the world uses. She's specifically talking about things like Instacart and Facebook Messenger, which I understand Asher was instrumental in building out, right? So Instacart is um it's not the most popular tool in the world, but it's from a sort of customer perspective. But it is like this globally scalable platform which has been transformed industries, right? Instacart has. And also Facebook Messenger is it kind of exists in that kind of universe to some degree. That sort of hyper scalable social interactive platform, which I think is a big aspect of what Xbox is missing right now for its future. I think Xbox as a platform needs to be more social, and I really feel like, um, I love Phil to death, but you can you can kind of tell that Phil hated social media. He hated using social media, and a lot of the moves Microsoft has made over the last 5 years have been to reduce its social footprint, I feel like. And I think that's antithetical to what you should be doing if you're trying to keep the platform healthy for the next generation who want a hyper social experience, for better or worse. Microsoft is um almost allergic to social media. Like, the only social media it has is LinkedIn, which is this horrible, sanitized, awful social network. It's the opposite of what a gaming social network should be. So I do think that, to some degree, her experience with Facebook is probably a good thing structurally for the business, the platform aspect. And I think Matt Booty moving to the CCO position, I think that will ensure that, at least in the short term, that the games keep doubling down on the core. And I feel like you kind of have to look at Blizzard right now for an example of how doubling down on the core can help. And I know that, like I say, Blizzard still has its problems. Xbox, Overwatch has its problems. Diablo has its problems, sure. But you've got to look at like how well Blizzard did to bring Overwatch back from the brink, right? Overwatch was the lowest rated game in Steam history, and all of that was backlash against Overwatch 2, backlash against the lawsuits and the abuse, and Xbox hasn't that necessarily deal with something on that scale, but Xbox does have this kind of like Xbox does exist in this universe where the wider audience is really down on what Xbox and Microsoft are doing. But for Blizzard to bring that to bring it back and create a lot of positivity around its brand all at once, it shows that it's possible, right? And I can't help but feel like Xbox must be looking at how the way Blizzard did this. And the way Blizzard did it was um, doubling down on what people were asking for. People asked for 20 years for player housing, so they went and did it. They were asking for, some of the new stuff that Overwatch got, and just sort of doubling down on content and all that kind of thing. And it's sort of revived a lot of this stuff. So the fact that Asha said in her email, we want to double down on the core, that to me represents an acknowledgement of what happens if you actually do give people what they want. Ali Eminem, that's a cool name, by the way, with the €5. Thank you for that, buddy. He says, I'm getting out of whack with some of these super chats at the moment. Bear with me, I'll catch up. Do you think Activision was the beginning of the end? I don't think. See, that's kind of a trick question because I don't think we're at the end. I think portents of Xbox's doom have been going on for even before the Xbox One launched. People were predicting Xbox's demise and its divestiture and all that kind of stuff. By itself, Xbox is in the Fortune 200 top businesses. So if Xbox was separated out, it'd still be like one of the biggest businesses in America by itself. So I do think Xbox has some unique challenges to undertake, but they're not just like Xbox issues, they're also Microsoft issues. And I kind of feel like solving one of those issues will also solve the other. And that is kind of like reconnecting with its core customer bases, not just across Xbox, but also Windows. And also improving the user experience for Windows and Xbox. And also taking a future-facing view of the latest technological trends. Because like it or not, AI has a role to play here. And she definitely seems like someone who is cognizant of the fact that it's deeply unpopular when AI is applied in a sort of haphazard kind of way. So I don't think Activision was the beginning of any end. I think it was, you know, we're still getting single player games out of this, right? We're still getting Fable. We're still getting Gears Day. And there are other projects, single player projects, that were greenlit after Activision's acquisition. So I think like if Activision was really impacting Xbox all up as much as, people like to claim, I don't think these single player games get greenlit. I think all the budget. I don't think studios like Double Fine survive. Some of the smaller studios, the art house studios. I don't think some of those studios survive. I think if Activision was really devouring Xbox, all of the budget will be allocated to growing the service games. But I think Xbox wants to have an ecosystem, a diverse ecosystem, so they can tap into as many niches as possible. And I think that's an ideological thing. They could double down on Activision. They could inflate the budget of the most popular games, but they don't. At least for now, they're still working on traditional core games and using Game Pass as a vehicle for that. So I think it's too early to say Xbox is doomed, personally, but maybe I'm naive. Right, I'm gonna scroll back and get some of these other super chats now. We've got Cappy 912 with the 5 Canadian. Thank you so much. Xbox's 25th is supposed to be a big year. So do you think he retired because Xbox is in a good place and to give a positive start instead of like he did with the X1? I went to the reason I was not here this week was because I was at an event at WWE for the WWE 2K26 game. Hands-on impressions come with that soon, by the way. And I was actually like, I hate to use a wrestling analogy for people who don't know, but one of wrestling's biggest wrestlers ever retired recently, John Cena, right? And John Cena gave an interview because some people were unhappy with the way John Cena retired. John Cena retired at a random event in December, and rather than at like a big event like WrestleMania, he retired at a random event in December. And what he said in an interview, he said like, "I retired in December because it was best for the company." And John Cena has always been like this sort of um, company first kind of guy, putting himself to the side. At least that's a perception, at least. And he was saying like December is really tough for wrestling fans because the viewership is down because people are visiting their family. Ticket prices are down because people are spending money on Christmas presents. So he was like, we can do something big for the community and the business if I retire in December in one of our what is typically a really bad quarter for us. So I think if I'm Phil, and this might just be me like, glazing Phil and imagining in a positive light, But if I'm Phil and, I am thinking about the business, do I want to be the face of the 25th anniversary? Or do we sort of hand that off to the new generation who's gonna hopefully take Xbox to, hopefully, great heights, if you wanna be optimistic about it. Um, so Phil, obviously, he comes with a lot of baggage, right? The whole 4 games thing, it's only 4 games, and Phil really carried forward a message of we need exclusives and all and when the business changed, all those messages became sort of tarnished, you know? Um, and I never really blamed Phil for that because it was just some of this stuff was business realities. Um, I think they went a bit too hard personally, like, I've talked about this before, like, I think something like the PlayStation model of having, like, 6 months or 12 months of exclusivity before moving to PC, I think Microsoft should have done something like that with the Xbox games, at least give them some time to breathe on Xbox before you move them on, but I think PlayStation could do that because they have a much bigger platform, um, to some degree. Whereas Xbox is like we said earlier, it's lower down on the rung, so they're impacted more by some of this stuff. Um, but I do think by uh by passing the torch, it kind of creates a clean slate and hopefully, a positive upswing but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Um, Andy Ackerman with the 199 says, "Hey, big Sezzy." Thank you, buddy. At J97F, member for 1 month. Thank you so much. JEZ, opinion on Asher replies to Xbox exclusives. I think, and also we got Crusader with the 2, while she even commented on the exclusive post. Yeah, so I really genuinely think people shouldn't read too much into that. I think her saying "we hear you" is not necessarily like, "we hear you and we're gonna get rid of being multi-platform." I think that strategy is well and truly locked in, and I don't think you'll see a big shift away from being a multi-platform company. What I do think is potentially she's probably like, we need to do more to have some kind of exclusive, or at least make more visible the things about the Xbox platform which are good and are exclusive. Like, I was at the WWE event talking about this with Jesse from Xbox Era and some other people about how there are things about because, Xbox Era is obviously rebranded to Day One, right? They rebranded away from Xbox Era, and they've gone multi-platform, so they're playing a lot more PlayStation games right now. And we were talking about some of the things that you often take for granted on the Xbox platform, like, the free cloud saves, Xbox Play Anywhere, um, just things that, like, just work on PlayStation, which you get used to as a platform. And PlayStation has these kind of features too, where they have, like, unique features that you get used to, and when they're not there, you'll be like, "Oh god, I really missed that. PlayStation's better." But if you're, like, used to the way the Xbox ecosystem is, there are exclusive features there which, um, you can sort of you will miss when they're gone, right? So, I think, like, we could see more exclusive platform features and a sort of a better showcase of what Xbox does really well, but I really don't think we'll see a return to I don't think we'll see a full retreat from having, um, multi-platform games. I think at the very, very most, maybe some games become timed exclusives again, but I I think even that is like, um, I think even that is like, probably a reach. Um, what else we got here? Ba-ba-ba. We've got Josiah Span with the 10. Thank you so much, dude. Keep up the great work, Jez. I'm feeling cautiously optimistic. Seems like Xbox needed fresh blood. Yeah, I do think, like, I think I think appointing Asher was very intentional in the sense that I think they wanted someone with the social media clout, the social media experience, and maybe someone like on the younger end who can relate more to some of the demographic challenges that Xbox is facing. Because I do think, like, if you are someone who, is more like on like Gen X, like on Phil's keel, some of the like even me, like as a millennial, I don't get Roblox, man. I don't get why people like that shit. I look at Roblox and I just see pure trash. And much in the same way that I'm sure some people are watching me play Warcraft and thinking the same right now. This looks terrible, right? But it's taking that sort of viewpoint of, we need to figure out why these youngsters aren't coming into Xbox, And maybe Phil and co weren't the right people for that um kind of soul searching, I think. So yeah, I think fresh blood could be a good thing, you know. Clearly the current strategy all up wasn't necessarily working. Um yeah, I don't know. So what else we got here? I think that's cool now. So yeah, I don't know, man. Um it's all crazy, dude. Everything is just crazy. There's so much there's so many there's so many sort of facets to this. Um there's so many like different angles to the way all this could go down. And I don't know if any of you guys read that big report recently which was talking about Roblox. Roblox is like the existential issue. And of course, Roblox is on Xbox, and Roblox was exclusive to Xbox for a little while, if some of you guys remember. But it's only since sort of becoming an iPad kid staple that it became, like, absolutely huge, right? Um, you know, um, like Ian Mingo in chat says, Roblox does have some games that with tons of effort put into them. Sadly, they don't get the attention they deserve. And even more of a shame, Roblox themselves didn't care to properly manage its platform. I mean, yeah, like, I'm not saying, like, Roblox is a bad thing, necessarily. I mean, for a lot of kids growing up, like, Roblox is it's gonna be their Minecraft, it's gonna be their Fortnite, it's their nostalgia touchstone. Like, they'll go become into adults, and they'll be talking to their friends like, "Oh god, you remember all this stuff we did on Roblox?" In much the same way that, like, I might talk about Unreal Tournament '99 or Unreal Tournament 2003 or 2004, and some of you guys talk about Halo. Like, I don't really have that Halo nostalgia, but, nostalgia it's part of the fun of the hobby, and I think one of the ways Xbox and all the platform holders, less so Nintendo, but at least Sony and Microsoft, one of the ways I think in which they've lost their way is they've forgotten that gaming is an opt-in hobby, and it is a hobby. It's not like a utility. It's not something you have to do. It's a hobby that you choose to opt into, and you can't really treat that like a utility. There has to be a feel good factor about all of this shit. There has to be um a very strong aspect of the business which revolves around giving people what they want, which sounds like crazy to have to even say that. But when a company's publicly traded and you are getting people like Amy Hood who only look at the numbers, you can't measure sentiment accurately in Microsoft Excel. You can't do it, And I think, like, when especially like projected sentiment, and I think projected sentiment is something that is impacting all the major platforms right now, but more so Xbox and others. Projected sentiment, like, I've just imagined that term right now. But imagine if they could project 2 decades ago how people would feel about Xbox and the nostalgia that revolves around some of their franchises, right? People are going to be nostalgic for Sea of Thieves. People are nostalgic for World of Warcraft even now. But I think Nintendo really gets this. Is like, how can we develop platform over time, and nostalgia and creating those experiences and instilling those experiences in younger audiences creates this sort of compounding interest, over time. I think Nintendo really gets that to some degree, but I think the other platform holders have neglected that, which is why we've ended up in this demographical situation right now, where um, a lot of the franchises were mismanaged, like Halo, and a lot of the franchise. I think it was Square Enix that said this recently, or I saw a headline relating to this, but they were saying that, like, Final Fantasy dev cycles are so long now, and this resonated with me. Final Fantasy dev cycles are so long now that little kids growing up never get to experience Final Fantasy. There will be kids who have grown up never experiencing a new Grand Theft Auto, or kids growing up have never experienced, like, a lot of the games, or even a Mario and things like that. Because, like, it takes, or Metroid, some of the games that have taken longer to ship, because they go their entire childhood missing the whole dev cycle. And by the time they're old, they've already aged out. So it's kind of like, I think that's partially why service games have started driving that nostalgic layer, because they're always there. They're always in development and they're always there. So I think these longer dev cycles are partially to blame for some of this shit. But it's mismanagement and neglect of that longer term view. That longer term view and that quarterly thought process of, like, we need to deliver for the next quarter. I think that's really hurt Xbox and Microsoft all up. So when Satya identifies this as a challenge in his letter, it was kind of like, oh, do they get it, or are they just saying they get it? Um, that's kind of like that's kind of a thing. I go, I guess. Um, uh, Gummy B Damn It says, "Will there be a March event?" So I have heard this rumor. Like some source, a couple of sources actually messaged me earlier today, and they were like, "Is there going to be a March Developer Direct?" I haven't had time to investigate that one, but I did hear, and I think I said this on Xbox too, that there could be another event next quarter. Um, After when I was talking about the January Developer Direct, so I do think it's like it's a rumor that I'd put like on the higher end of being possibly true, but we'll see, right? Um, No Don 999 says with 5 Canadian, thanks so much. He says, "Why does Matt Booty always seem to avoid accountability? Redfall, Tango, GameWorks, Perfect Dark, Starfield, many more on his watch." I mean, to be fair to Matt, Redfall was in development before. I'm pretty sure before his tenure, but I do agree that why didn't I identify that game had major problems? You know, that does seem like a massive oversight. But I think that's why they've sort of divided up his role a little bit. So like Craig Duncan handles some of that stuff now. Um and you know, I think like Tim Stewart's gone to Bethesda to sort of give more of an overview into what's going over there. So I do think that was like I don't really necessarily blame Matt Booty for that. I think that was probably like honestly, probably on Phil, to be honest. I do think like maybe they gave Matt too much responsibility structurally, and that there should have been a view that one person can't possibly, when all these studios are like all running across the world, you know, we shouldn't expect Matt Booty to really have the capacity to, you know, micromanage every single project that's in existence because Xbox is really big. So I think you could say like Xbox probably grew too fast and they didn't have a good structure in place to properly examine some of this stuff because corporate inertia is a real thing. So even like me and you could have gone to that studio and be like, man, this game is not going to hit, you know, but we're just like random people. Like in a corporate structure, there has to be like all these accountability layers and all that kind of thing, which is why like corporate gaming often feels so sloppy. And part of it is corporate inertia, I think. Um, it's not an excuse, but it is to some degree a reality. And I suppose they've definitely learned their lesson from games like Redfall. But I honestly think Matt Booty doesn't get enough credit for the wins. Like Forza Horizon is huge. Like developing Fallout into a sort of a globally identifiable brand now. Like normies speak about Fallout now. And that's not just the games, that's things like merchandising, that's things like the influence operation they got running for that game, TV show. And obviously like Matt Booty isn't necessarily directly responsible for the TV show becoming a thing, but it's also like if we're gonna ascribe the big losses to him, then we should probably consider ascribing the wins to him. The reason he got his job was developing Minecraft from like an indie JavaScript platform into the global powerhouse that it is now. That is why Matt Booty has his job. So, you know, um, I think you kind of have to like there isn't a company on earth with regards to gaming that have 100% win rate. You know, so we maybe can argue that Matt has endured some losses more so, but I think we've seen over the last couple of years, at least with regard to the output's been a lot better. Um, I wasn't a huge fan of some of the games that have been putting out over the last year, but there has been a lot of wins, you know. I think like we can't deny some of that stuff. We'll see how it goes, man. Um, and then we've got James Black with the 10. Thank you so much for that, dude. Jez, do you think Xbox sales would be any different with exclusives, given how most games they release, like Outer Worlds 2 and Hellblade, don't even sell well, even when they're released on PlayStation? I mean, this is one of the questions I've put to them. It's like, is releasing some of these games on PlayStation actually moving the needle for you guys? I think part of it is, um, I think part of it is internal politics. Like, if I'm a game dev, if I'm an Obsidian, or if I'm an Obsidian who historically wasn't an exclusive game developer. They develop multi-platforms. And they're saying to me, "Look, you've got to deliver this many sales. These are your KPIs." And they're like, "Well, you'll only let me release it on one platform or two platforms, PC being the other one. Like, how is that kind of fair?" You know? And we're sort of fighting a war with one arm tied behind our back. But I do think some of this was just, Microsoft acknowledging that they're giving developers perhaps targets that would be much easier to hit if they were multi-platform. I think that's part of it. Um, but also, like, when you are going multi-platform, you can adopt more risk. You can adopt a more risky posture. So while like Hellblade 2 and Outer Worlds 2 didn't sell spectacularly well, they were probably conceived at a time where they weren't expecting to have the PlayStation install base as a addressable market. So if you do have PlayStation's install base as an addressable market, my assumption is at least that they can take on more risk and have a bigger budget and maybe just be like, let's go balls to the wall on this and make a game that people can't ignore. That's kind of like how I'm kind of viewing the way Fable's gone. Because Fable does seem like it's a kind of game that has all those extra details and all those bells and whistles that an Xbox exclusive typically hasn't had for a long time. And you can say like Microsoft should have taken on that risk themselves, and I tend to agree. But they are a publicly traded entity. They do have a board of directors who will scrutinize those kind of decisions. And when you are spending shareholders' money on big projects that potentially don't deliver, for better or worse, that's when people get fired, right? And then replaced with someone who will do it. So there's an intersection of money and politics here, you know, corporate politics. And that's one thing I always credited Phil with, was he knew how to navigate that complicated, murky world of shareholder expectations, board of director, Satya and all that kind of stuff. Um, and yeah, I suppose the big question for me is like, because the worry for me with Asha was, is she just going to be a yes woman, um, delivering Satya's agenda, without a view of the long-term damage some of their decisions have made? But when Satya specifically says like, we want to have a long-term view of gaming and all this kind of thing, I think that is hopefully an acknowledgement of the fact that to have a long-term view of gaming, you've got to deliver a consistent, high-quality product above all else. You can't just like expect to price gouge your existing users in perpetuity, because people will leave, and we've seen people leave. The Xbox platform sales are down, and I presume Game Pass subscribers are down, um, because of the price hikes. I know a ton of people who unsubscribed. I don't know if like they're going to be able to offset those losses with the price hike. And furthermore, how many people are how many of the people that still subscribed have done so via nefarious means? Like, I subscribe through Game Pass through my phone provider, which offers it to me at the reduced price even from before the price hike. And there are other people who, they're converting Game Pass Ultimate using the conversion trick. And how many people are actually paying $30 a month for Game Pass? How many of you guys are paying $30 a month for Game Pass? I mean, I'd like to know that, right? But, there's a big ramble on that topic. And now we've got Attack the Backlog. There's, dude, thanks for replying, X. I've been spent 2 days trying to remember what I wanted to ask you regarding COD 2 on Switch. Oh, try to remember. Yeah, I mean, I heard COD 2 on Switch was testing pretty well. I'll try and get an update on that for the near term. But it's coming, that not only it's not a revelation to say it's coming, they're contractually obligated by the regulators to bring Call of Duty to Switch in some capacity. Um, and so it is definitely coming. I don't know which one is though. I would presume it's the latest one, I would presume. But maybe they'll do one of the older ones if it's an easier port initially. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe it'll be Warzone. I'll try and find out exactly which Call of Duty it is. so bear with me on that. Sean Boy with the Night 7 says, "Hi, Jez." Sean, I owe you money, man. Remind me on this one. Ali Eminem says, with the €5, "Thanks for the compliment, bro. Any price range for the next Xbox? Could we play OG Xbox DVDs and latest PlayStation Steam games on it any day?" So, I brought out a big report about the next gen Xbox a little while ago. The current landing strip is 2027, late 2027, what I've heard. And I've tried to get updates on whether or not that landing strip could change based on RAM, tariffs, all that kind of thing. Because Bloomberg put out some pretty strong rumors that PlayStation is taking the view that they need to delay the next PlayStation to hopefully wait for the RAM prices to come down. But I think Matt Piscatella from NPD, Sakana, sorry, on Xbox Expansion Pass podcast, which you guys should definitely check out. He said something along the lines of Xbox is best placed to win some of those RAM contracts because they can tie their data center purchases, the big bulk data center purchases, to acquiring components for the next Xbox. And Xbox, like being part of Microsoft, comes with its downsides, of course, but it also comes with a lot of upsides. I'm not sure if a platform that was struggling to maintain hardware sales like Xbox, if they weren't tied to Microsoft, I don't think they'd still exist. Microsoft is the one that can sort of use their clout as a gigantic company to keep winning publishing content, to keep themselves in the game, even at a time where it's challenging for them, right? So if they are going to leverage their clout to land some of these big component deals, that could bode well not only for actually having access to the RAM, but also maybe the price if they are going to do these big bulk purchases. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. I think like some of the commentary that like the next Xbox are going to be $2,000. I think that's pie in the sky. I think they absolutely know like there is a hard limit on what people accept here in terms of price. And I think they do want to build a system that is at least to some degree accessible by their core audiences in the Anglo-centric countries, specifically America, Canada, Australia, United Kingdom. I think like a lot of other regions are lost because of tariffs and that kind of thing, but they've kept themselves in the game using PC and cloud, which is why having a presence with Steam is so important. So, the current plan, if it's not going to change, and I don't see any reason why it would change, is for the next Xbox to run full Windows, which means not only Xbox games using the backwards compatible SoC, Magnus, but also full-blown access to Windows, thus Steam, and thus all the PlayStation games and whatever else you want to put on it. Like, you'll be able to run emulators on it, you'll be able to do whatever you want on it, because it will just be a PC in essence. And come to think of it, the fact that it's PC will also help them avoid other tariffs, because some PCs are actually excluded from some of the tariffs, I believe, whereas video game consoles are not. So it could be a play in that direction too, where it's like if we tie the Xbox ecosystem to a platform that's too big to tariff, that could also help with the affordability and profit margin. I still think it'll be quite pricey though, so if you do want it, I'd start saving now probably. Chris R55 says, Jez, I think you went past my super chat. Oh shit, dude, I'm sorry. Bear with me a sec. Where are we for this one? And John Sick Mechanico, thank you so much, dude. Appreciate you, man. Chris, I'm sorry, I'll try and find it. I really need a better setup for this. I wish there was like a feed on this shit which just showed you like what notifications are coming through, but I'm sure there is, but I just haven't set it up right. I wasn't expecting many people to show up, to be honest, so I'm kind of like a bit screwed up at the minute. Bear with me a sec, Chris. Oh, Chris with the 10, I found it. Jez, do you have any context on the new head of Xbox specifically highlighting console? If the new lead is more eager to compete in the console space, could we see more competitive pricing? I did just mention the pricing stuff, but I mean, even before Asher came on board, I was asking people, involved in the hardware platform because, I have been investigating hardware a lot because, it's kind of my bread and butter, right? It's kind of what I'm really interested in, and it's what I've always had good sources on hardware, whether it was like I leaked the Xbox Series S back in the day, Project Scorpio. I think we were the first to the code name, although that was my colleague Zach Bowden who did that. So shout out to Zach. Um, Often unsung component of the Windows Central, platform. Um, but like I was asking my sources about um, like how many of these consoles do you expect to sell? Are we talking hundreds of thousands like an Xbox Ally, and or how are we thinking about that stuff? And they were like pretty bullish and just saying like this is gonna be a typical console release for us, which means like big volume, big marketing, and I would presume they're not naive to think like they're gonna sell like 10 million units out of the gate, given the state of the world and the state of the brand and that kind of thing. But um, it does sound like they are like planning to go hard on it, whether it's like aggressive pricing or marketing and all that kind of thing. It does sound like it's going to be a fully traditional console launch life cycle for Xbox, but we'll see if that pans out, right? Um, we'll see. I do think like they are trying to position themselves strategically with regards to tariffs and that kind of thing. We'll see how all that shit goes down. Scrolling back now, I'm just double checking if I haven't missed anything. Um, uh, 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 Glitchy Texture says, "Are you seriously giving credit to Fallout to Booty?" I mean, not necessarily, but I'm just saying, like, if we're crediting him with some of the losses, then shouldn't we credit him with some of the wins? You know, um, I mean, Fallout, structurally speaking, in order to access some of the funding and the support it did, especially for Fallout 76, which is started to do pretty well these days. I think you kind of have to acknowledge the fact that they've had Xbox's sign off in order to access some of that stuff. And Fallout 76 is doing pretty well right now. So that was kind of more my point. I wasn't necessarily saying like Matt Booty created Fallout or greenlit the TV show or anything like that. I'm just saying like if we crediting him with all the failures, then you need to credit him with some of the wins, right? That was kind of my point on that one. It's not like an accident that some of these positive things do happen, and I would say like Fable is booty all up. It's all up in his booty. So if Fable lands, and Forza's also been landing, um, can we not ascribe some of that stuff to him? You know, but I think you're completely accurate in the sense that things like Perfect Dark and Everwild were on his watch. And I've said this on Xbox too. I think them announcing Everwild was almost like, this is my conspiracy theory. It was kind of an internal political play where it was kind of like Microsoft Xbox daring Microsoft corporate to cancel the game after announcing it. Being like, well, you can't cancel this shit because we announced it now and it's got a brand and stuff. And then Microsoft being like, actually, we can cancel it. You guys shouldn't have announced it early, that kind of thing. So, clearly there's been some misses, a lot of misses, but there's also been wins. So that was my only point there. Could he be doing better? Sure. But I also genuinely think like there aren't many publishers out there, publicly traded, that have as many wins overall as Microsoft has had, you know. And part of that is because Microsoft's so big. You really have to look to things when thinking about Matt Booty's tenure. You really have to look to things like Forza and Minecraft and Flight Simulator, Age of Empires. Honestly, like people forget about how big Age of Empires is, and um, still, and we never think about the positives that have actually been delivered there. So we'll see what happens. And I do credit a lot of Blizzard's upward trajectory to becoming independent of Activision. And that is Microsoft like investing in helping Blizzard do what it does better rather than the Activision model, which was like, let's gouge this for all it's worth. Because a lot of the stuff that Xbox has been doing with Blizzard, that requires real investment, you know. That's not a case of like, and I know like Warcraft's had things like $100 mounts and things, you know, cosmetic DLC and that kind of things crept into the game, but those aren't enough to pay for the amount of extra investment that the game has seen in terms of patch cadence, major new features like the player housing system, you know, just using WoW as an example. That's taken real investment, and I think, you know, Matt Booty deserves some credit for identifying the opportunities that do exist, even if sometimes there has been some pretty big notorious losses, right? So, you know. Rye Mouth with the 20 Canadian, thank you so much. I think that's Canadian. Love your work, Jez. Our next gen Xbox still a go, mostly handheld. The next gen Xbox, from what I understand, is a traditional box. Just traditional console, something you can put under your TV. Not a handheld, although I have heard that they still want to do a handheld. They still want to do a first party handheld. I don't know if that's dependent on AMD miniaturizing the Magnus SoC. I don't know if that's even possible. Like, how much cooling would that take? That kind of thing. I'm not a super techie guy. I don't know if that's even something that's reasonable to expect to happen. But that is something that I aspire to do, is to eventually have a handheld that you can dock, like an Xbox Ally, that does run at least a significant portion of the back catalog natively, you know. So whether or not we end up getting that fully remains to be seen, but it is something they aspire to do eventually. Where are we here? So bear with me, guys. The chat is proper moving, man. Cheers. Brad Sams says that he expects Game Pass to have an uptick from good old Collingwood. How are you doing, man? People have topped their subs before the price rise. Yeah, I mean, one thing that is interesting, I was shopping in Germany recently, and you know, like a lot of the supermarkets, they have like Steam cards you can buy, and you know, and sort of like all the gift cards are in a whole section, right? So it's like Steam, Roblox, Minecraft, Nintendo money, PlayStation money, and Xbox money, right? I noticed that there was still like quite a fat stack of Xbox Game Pass cards at the old price still. So clearly, like, millions of these cards still exist in circulation. I think Amazon's still selling them at $20 because they've got $20 printed on them. And I suppose like Amazon is contractually like, well, we're still going to sell these at $20. It's got $20 printed on it, you know. So people are rushing to buy up these cheaper cards ahead of the price hike. So maybe in the short term we will see this like, oh, the subs actually went up because the rush to top up their subscriptions. But longer term, is Game Pass worth $30? Like, I don't think it is right now. I mean, it is on paper, but if you use every aspect of it or most of the aspects of it, and I'm certainly personally not someone who will play every game in Game Pass, or even like enough of the games in Game Pass to justify paying $30 a month, you know, especially given how much of a backlog I have and how much of a backlog many other people have too. I think people would rather save the money. But I think there is an opportunity there to make Game Pass worth the money. And I think there was a report recently. I think it was Tom Warren in his newsletter on The Verge. He said something along the lines of Microsoft's trying to look at ways to add even more value to Game Pass. You know, and I think like making it so there are more reasons to subscribe at $30 is probably like for them a race against time right now, where they're like, we need to make this work, you know, and make people feel like it's worthwhile. One thing I did hear, right, and I don't know if this would ever happen, but one thing I did hear, and this is something I get asked a lot, is they were exploring putting the World of Warcraft subscription and some of the other subscriptions they got, like Fallout First, Minecraft Realms, they were exploring putting that in Game Pass Ultimate. Now, if they did that, if they put World of Warcraft and Minecraft first, and you know, Minecraft Realms, sorry, and Fallout First subscription and the Elder Scrolls subscription, if they put all that into Game Pass Ultimate, then oh boy, does it become worth it then for me at $30. But like I say, like a lot of people, I'm not paying full whack for it right now because I've figured out a way to avoid that shit. So we've got Nikki with the 5 says, any update on Xbox adding Game Pass tier without Fallout First, with Fallout First instead of Fortnite? Well, I kind of just addressed that. I think it does seem like they're gonna eventually integrate some of the subscriptions into Ultimate, but we'll see if it actually happens. I absolutely think they should do that. But I don't know if they will. We'll see what happens, man. Have I missed any other super chats here? I'm just scrolling. We're scrolling. We are scrolling. I can't scroll back anymore. So if I've missed a super chat, can you guys let me know in the chat? But yeah, I would love Minecraft Realms in Game Pass because it's like I don't play Minecraft enough, but I love the idea of having a persistent realm that I could just go back to whenever. And I know you can just like, I can subscribe and then unsubscribe and, and I don't, or download the realm and I wouldn't necessarily lose the realm. I just lose access to it when I'm not playing. But if it was just there all times, like, and I could just jump on whenever I feel like to do a little bit of building or, work on my farm or something, I absolutely would utilize that. And I think a lot of other people would too. I think it would boost the engagement of those games. And I think it would help justify the $30 at the high end. Or maybe they could move to a model like my phone operator has, where you can pick your perk, right? It'd be cool if like you could swap out Fallout, you could swap out Fortnite Crew, because I don't play Fortnite. I'm never gonna use that part of the sub. It'd be cool if you could pick your perk, right? And instead of Fortnite, I could pick World of Warcraft, or I could pick Minecraft Realms, or something else, right? One of the other subscriptions. I think that would be pretty damn cool. But we'll see. I'm gonna make a poll here actually, because I want to know what you guys think. Are you still subscribed to Xbox Game Pass? Yes. We'll do yes, Ultimate. Yes, lower tiers. Yes, but I'm gonna cancel. And we'll do no, unsubscribed. Unsubscribed, and we'll do, oh, that's can't have any more. So yeah, that'll do. So here's a poll. Like, let me know what how you guys are handling that shit. It's there's so many aspects to this. There's so much upheaval. It's really hard to pass some of this shit. It's absolutely crazy. Xbox Expansion Pass. Hi, JEZ. Guys, definitely go and subscribe to Xbox Expansion Pass. It's a really underrated show. They do like really professional interviews with lots of, big industry figures. Excellent show. So definitely check that shit out. Alien M&M. I love that name. It's hard to say that. New achievements overhaul soon or what? I love you, Jed. Well, this is one of the things that I'm really hopeful that they'll identify as an issue, because she's come from Meta, and because she's sort of like hopefully got a view of like, we need to gamify platform a bit. I'm really curious what, for example, and I saw some of you guys bring this up. What exactly does return to Xbox mean? Because that was one of her things, right? It was like, we're gonna return to Xbox. We're gonna see a return of Xbox. So that kind of says to me that there are things about the current strategy that she doesn't agree with, and things that she thinks need to be better, And I think like someone in the chat has said, like, do you think they thought Phil was too nice? And I think sometimes I wonder if like that could be an issue, because I think in order for Xbox to be a more social, more cultural platform, there needs to be a willingness to get their hands dirty a little bit, lean into some of that, you know, chaos that does come with social media. And I think Xbox and all the big platform holders really shied away from that because they were scared of potential controversy impacting their platforms. Like, you've seen all the controversy that revolves around Roblox and whether or not it's protecting kids well enough. And I'm not saying Xbox should go so deregulated to the point where kids become at risk on the platform. Absolutely not. But obviously, adults on the platform should have way more freedoms than they potentially do right now. You know, not the freedom to like you know, spread hate and abuse. Of course not. But like, I should just be able to open a chat log and instantly start typing to friends without having to open the guide, without having to jump through all the weird hoops and the guide being laggy and all that kind of stuff. Like, and I really do look at BattleNet as a model here because, like, on BattleNet right now, you can see I've got his chat log here, and you know, I got a friends list of all the people that are playing all the Blizzard games, and I can just message them instantly from within the game. I don't have to open a guide. I don't have to open a separate menu. And also, the Xbox messaging interface is so laggy and slow, compared to like a Discord and stuff like that. Microsoft has often been like, I want to outsource that shit to all the platforms. You know, we'll let Discord have it. You know, and I think that's been the wrong approach. I think there needs to be more investment in the platform, like things like achievements, like things like the messaging system, all that kind of stuff all up. It's just all of that stuff has sort of gone away and been outsourced and neglected. So while I don't think necessarily we can confirm that Asher will be interested in these kind of things, um, Phil definitely wasn't. So maybe this is kind of like part of the shake-up thing, you know. Um, Liam says we should spread hate and abuse like the golden age of Halo 3. Let the kids cry. Well, that's definitely a view, you know. I have seen that view. Um, but you know, I think there are a lot of like even beyond like joking about it, there are legal considerations these days. Like the European Union and the United Kingdom, like they have like legislation now where platforms have to not be such not move too slowly um when it comes to regulating some of that content, you know. But put it this way, like the simple fact that I can't send a picture to someone on Xbox Live, um, like privately, easily, is an issue, you know. And the ability to send pictures on Xbox Live is inconsistent across some of the apps. Some of the apps let you send pictures and some of the apps don't, you know, like why isn't there not a consistent messaging experience at the very least, at the very base, the lowest level of this? I think all these features are hopefully things that she will improve being from Meta, but we'll see, man. James Black with the 2 says thoughts on Rand being snubbed for Xbox CEO. Yeah, I mean, I know Rand's pretty devastated about it. He was telling me about it earlier today. He put his application in and they just said to him like, sorry guys, your taste in games is too bad, so we can't like accept you at this time. So unfortunately, you've got to go back and just, you know, go back to reading your books, Rand. Unfortunately, that's uh, that's what I have to do. Corrupted says you're fucking dope, Jez. I always love your insight on Xbox and gaming. I mean, I appreciate that, man. I mean, I've got stuff wrong. Like, boy, have I got stuff wrong. And I actually met someone at the Xbox event, the WWE event, which was sponsored by Xbox, by the way, which I thought was weird. Um, and the guy was like, "Man, you're much nicer in person. You come across really cocky on Twitter." And I was like, "Damn, do I come across as cocky? I don't mean to. I like, I'm like the opposite of cocky. Like, I have so much self-doubt and so like constantly overthinking about shit, but like my North Star has always been like to give back to the Xbox community that has given me so much, you know. And I think sometimes I get defensive about the Xbox community to the point where people think I'm, you know, just shilling for Xbox or something. But it really is like it's guilt, you know. I feel guilty that I've earned myself a sort of privileged position because I come from like um I come from a universe where, nobody really, like my parents worked in factories, and I lived in one of the most deprived areas in the UK. I think it was actually like it was in the news for like Warsaw, the most deprived area in the UK. So for me to have the opportunities that I've been given, I'm like overwhelmingly grateful to the point where I'm defensive of the Xbox community. And I think that does make me come across the wrong way sometimes, but I'm absolutely just doing my best, and I don't want anyone to think like I'm a dick or, you know, be that kind of negative force in the world. I don't want that at all. But I really appreciate all the support from the people who I think a lot of people do get where I'm coming from, and I really appreciate that. Um J97F says, have you talked to Phil yet? I have spoken to Phil, briefly. Um Phil's in good spirits. I think he's really happy that like he gets to move on. And I think the fact that he is happy kind of says to me like, he was absolutely ready for this now. I think the industry, like, I don't want to put words in Phil's mouth, and I'm hoping that someday we can get Phil on Xbox 2 to talk about some of this stuff. It's always been a dream of mine and Rand to get Phil on the podcast, and it looks like it might not happen now. But if we can get Phil on the podcast, I'd ask him, directly like how he feels about some of this stuff. And I do think the industry evolved in a way that Phil didn't like. I think Phil realizes that there needs to be more of a social play. There needs to be more leaning into that rather than leaning out of it. And I think that isn't the vision for gaming that Phil would want to have. I think Phil is kind of like he really likes the studios like Double Fine, the art houses, the boutique stuff. And I know the studio closures weighed heavily on him. Um, and I think he's just been like, you know, it's time for me to step aside and maybe let someone look at it through fresh eyes, for better or worse. So yeah, I think he's in good spirits overall, but um, you know, Phil's been an amazing part of my journey, you know, an Xbox 2's journey. Like they invited Rand out to E3, they invited me out to E3. Um, they've given me opportunities to speak to game developers and, speak to people like Phil and learn a bit more about the business and hopefully translate it to people in a way that makes it a little easier to understand, at least where they're coming from to some degree. Um, you know, he's been a huge supporter of Windows Central. He always retweets our content. Um, I think he identifies the issues that, you know, blog sites are having right now, and they've been very supportive of us. So, I haven't agreed with everything he's done, and I said to him the last time I saw him in person was I think was it Summer Game Fest 2025 or 2024, and they had a really banger show, and I just said to him like, you know, remind me again why you're going multi-platform when you've got all this, great content, um, and so I haven't agreed with everything that they've done, but him and Sarah have been such huge supporters of us. So like, I'm personally like quite sad about it, even if Phil's pretty happy about it. But I'm happy for Phil, and that they all got. He's had such an incredible career, to go through Microsoft for almost 40 years and basically come out unscathed, um, while also remaining principled, sticking to his principles, I suppose, is pretty amazing. And I think like being forced to diverge away from those principles, probably the thing that weighed on him the most. Because I mean, again, I'm speculating here. I'm not putting words in his mouth, but the fact that Phil sort of pulled back so heavily on social media to me, like, I think that was really the beginning of him thinking like, I can't do this anymore. Maybe, um, because he was very vocal about, um, Xbox having exclusives and doing some of that kind of thing. They baked it into all their marketing, Xbox exclusive, all that kind of thing. And I think he genuinely loved when the community was happy, and I think he genuinely made him upset when the community wasn't happy. But he was also stuck between a rock and a hard place of, serving the paymasters and the shareholders, and he wasn't shy about the fiduciary responsibility, right? He said that in interviews to his, to criticism. He always said, like, I have to run a profitable business, right? But I do think that weighed on him, even though like he put a brave face on it. That's just my take. Are you still subscribed to Xbox Game Pass? The poll says 62% said yes. 27% said no, unsubscribe. So, there's still a huge, significant amount of people like subscribe to Game Pass, at least in this community. But I do wonder, like, this is one of the things I always think about when we discuss these topics, because us guys here, like you guys, myself and Rand and, Colt and all the sort of the people that are really deep in the industry, we all of us, like, we take this is a hobby for us, and we're not just interested in playing the games, we're also interested in the mechanics of how the industry works. But that isn't most people. Most people aren't like that. Most people just log on, play their Fortnite, and log off, and they go to work, and they've got other things to. They have other things that they concern themselves with. Um, and they don't know who Phil is, they don't know who Sarah is, and they don't know who Ash is, and they don't know like all the sort of talking points or the discourse. They're just either enjoying their platform or doing something else. So like I often think about like, you know, a lot of us here are talking about how we're still subscribed to Game Pass, but what's the wider audience? The silent majority, what are they doing with Game Pass? And I suppose we won't know whether or not they're aggressively unsubscribing to Game Pass until we start seeing some figures from Microsoft. And that's kind of one of the frustrations with Microsoft is they don't like sharing figures. No, they do not. The Winter Shoulder says with the fire, the previous management gone, I think that this makes Jason Ronald and Mina Sato critical for the future of Xbox infrastructure and relationships in Asia. That is a really good point. Sarah was a pretty huge part of that operation to win those people over. And I think like relationships are everything in this business. Like I remember when I heard about the layoffs in the summer, like some of my developer sources were like, "Oh great, we've, third party developers." They were saying like, "Oh great, the person I was, working with to bring my game to Xbox has now been laid off. So now I don't know who to speak to, and now I've got like a bottleneck with regards to bringing my game to Xbox." And we have seen like, notoriously a lot of indie games just straight up skip the platform. And part of that is because the people they were speaking to were laid off and they didn't know who to catch up with. Um, I'm sure some of those structural issues have been worked out now, but this is the kind of, it's just a microcosmic example of how important relationship building is in this business. Um, and with Sarah gone, Ash is literally starting from scratch. Like a lot of people have identified, she's not part of the industry. She's uh going to be unknown for a lot of the big publishers, and she's going to like, she's going to be flying all over the world in the first 6 months, trying like being introduced by Phil because Phil's staying there through to the summer, and so is Sarah. So like Sarah and Phil will be, I suppose, working very closely to build up and maintain some of those relationships. And I think she comes across well on social media. Like she's been bantering and taking some of there's a lot of toxicity already being directed her way, and she's been sort of taking that with, good humor and stuff like that. But we'll see what kind of operator she is when it comes to maintaining those relationships, because the Japan angle is like it's still tough. Like the big one for me is like stuff they've got Square Enix fully on board. That's amazing. Capcom's support of Xbox Play Anywhere has been pretty inconsistent, although they are often willing to take a Game Pass bag. Um, I'd love to see them, work with Kadokawa on, From Software. Like, we haven't seen a lot of, and I know, like, Sony's an investor there, which is probably one of the issues, but, um, we usually get the bare minimum from Software on Xbox, and they usually, like, the games are often very Sony coded, and we haven't I don't think we've never seen Dark Souls on Game Pass, right? I'm pretty sure we haven't. So, there's a lot of opportunity there to develop some of those relationships, and obviously the big opportunity above all is Chinese developers. Cracking the emerging Chinese AAA market, I think is going to be absolutely critical for Microsoft in the coming years. So we'll see how she handles all that kind of shit. Fun speculation says, Jez, why does Chris Avalon hate you so much? Like, dude, I spoke about this at the start of the show. Like, the fact he said me and Jez go way back, but I've never spoken to him apart from that one interaction, which started with him hating on me. And he said some things like, we initially had cordial interactions and stuff like that. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, when? When have we ever had a cordial interaction? Now, it could be that I'm misremembering. Like, you guys know from watching the podcast how shitty my memory is. But um I genuinely can't remember a time where we've interacted. And if we have, then I apologize. And if I pissed him off, then I apologize. Um and like I said at the start of the show, like, I don't disagree with some of the things he was saying about me. Like, I think sometimes I do come across in a way that is not as productive as I'd like it to be. Um and these are like kind of issues I'm trying to work through. But, the guy's made some of my favorite games ever. And I don't know why. I really genuinely don't know why. Maybe I'm just a terrible person and I deserve it, But I just fucking don't know, man. I really don't know. If someone could find out, that'd be cool. I'd really like to fucking know. Um, Epic Treasure sent 1 gift membership. Really appreciate you. Thank you so much. But it's like I said, like, I think some people, like, do know where I'm coming from, and that I'm orient. I'm trying to blog for the community, the Xbox community, and I think that does make me come across like a shill sometimes for Microsoft. But it's genuinely, it's from a position of wanting to support the community, because Windows Central is a community website. We have always been a community website. We were Windows Phone Central for Windows Central, and we were a community website. That's what we were. We had forums for, Windows developers, and then people stopped using forums and moved on to Reddit and stuff like that. But we are a community website. That is what we're trying to be. We're not trying to be like hard hitting journalism, and I'm not trained in journalism, so I wouldn't even know how to approach some of that stuff. I've learned a lot of this shit in the job. I was a hobby blogger and still kind of approach it with that mentality. So yeah, I've fucked up a lot, and I want to do better. And I've been in this job for 10 years, and I still sit here thinking, like, I still have so much to fucking learn. But I've been like, I had a conversation with a legitimate journalist at the WWE event who works for like newspapers and stuff. And just speaking to that guy for 30 minutes, I learned so much, you know. Shout out to him, by the way. I won't name check him because he's not like, he's not on social media much, and he doesn't seem to want to like be a public face, but he's like a very successful showbiz journalist, and he writes for like major mainstream publications. And like, we had a long conversation because there was a big bus ride, and like, I learned so much from this guy about the way journalism works, the way the industry works, the way, interacting with PR works. Like, and I realized, like, just from that 30-minute conversation, how naive I still am about a lot of things, even though I've been doing this for 10 years. So I don't like reject the things Chris Avalon said about me. The only thing I reject that he said about me is that we go way back. That really confused me because as far as I know, I've never spoken to the guy before he raged at me on Twitter and subtweeted me in 2025, you know. But I could be wrong. Maybe we had an interaction at an event and I've forgotten because you know, I'm not the smartest person in the universe. So it's really fucking easy for me to forget. And I don't know why. Maybe I got brain damage or something, but um I don't know. Darth Monkey 28 says, You didn't state where you heard that from. Dude, look at his Twitter feed. He tweeted a lot of hate about me, um, saying that I was disappointing and a shill and all this kind of stuff. And I'm just like, no, is he mixing me up with someone else, or am I just that much of an asshole? And maybe he's right. I don't know. I don't know, man. Playday1 says, Jez, you're great. It was awesome to catch up with you over the week. Avalon is being insulting. It's bullshit. Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, I really don't know. Um, we got some more super chats here. Thank you so much. Alien Eminem says, did they gut Tango when Shinji Mikami left? How? So this is what I heard about um Tango, and I was pretty sad about Tango because I'm a big Evil Within fan. I've got Evil Within merch, and Evil Within was one of the first games I covered professionally. So I kind of had this sort of I don't know, affinity for the Evil Within specifically, and I was really hoping to see Evil Within 3 be a return to form and that kind of thing. So yeah, I was a bit sad about that whole thing, and I did do a bunch of research into what kind of went down there. So the first thing I heard was the issues were structural. So the fact that they're on a wildly different time zone. They also, a lot of their devs didn't speak English. It made integrating into Xbox's studios plan very difficult. So one of the things Xbox does right now is with the advanced technology group and the coalition especially, they work aggressively with teams to up level their games in Unreal Engine. And because of Tango's location and that kind of stuff, um, Microsoft found it very difficult, you know, to make it work. And you could probably argue that they should have tried harder. They're a huge company at the end of the day, but that is one reason I was given. Another reason that I was given was uh, Shinji Mikami left, and they actually, and this is what I heard. Don't know how true it is, so in fact, I'm probably not going to say it because you know I don't want to put out misinformation or speculation if this isn't true. Um, but I heard um the bit that we all know is that Shinji Mikami left, and I think that had a very negative impact on the studio from a perspective of like we need someone with the biz dev experience in order to run this, and we don't have that now. So I think that was part of it too. Um, so and I also heard like there was a pitch for a game, and Shinji didn't want to do it or something like that. And again, don't know if that's 100% true, but um, it just didn't work out. And it sucks that it didn't, but I'm sad about it. But on the silver lining is that the studio did seem to remain an entity, and they're now with Krafton, I think. So we'll see how that pans out because the way Krafton is, it could have been frying pan into the fire kind of situation because Krafton doesn't seem particularly. Krafton's been under fire a lot recently too, right? So um uh yeah, I don't know. We'll see how that plays out. We'll see, man. Um mm, mm, and I really appreciate you guys like supporting me and stuff. Like I think you guys know where I'm coming from a lot of the time with regards to some of the mistakes I've made, but I do need to do better, and Chris is absolutely right, and I'm gonna try. Um I'd love it if I'd love it if more people like tried to speak directly to others and just be more constructive about criticism because I genuinely don't have a clue what I'm doing. And like when people in the industry have spoken to me, I desperately try and get some form of mentorship, even if it's only like 5 minutes. Because I dropped out of senior school. I didn't go to uni. I didn't go to college. I went to college for like 5 minutes to do. I did night classes at college for IT for about 6 months, or if that, probably not even 6 months, and then dropped out. Because I just I could never sit in a classroom. I just get so bored, and I just like I can't handle this. It's so boring. So I daydream, I doodle. I used to draw a lot at school. Um, and that's a me problem. But I think like it's given me these like weird, huge gaps in my knowledge about how to behave as a human being. And it's no excuse when I'm pushing 40, but I am desperately trying to, you know, fix some of that shit. Um, I don't know. But I do appreciate the support genuinely. Wagaman 55059, appreciate you, man, with the $10. Hey JEZ, I'm concerned more with Matt Booty than Asher at the moment. He always comes across as a pretty edgy person. With this promotion, I'm concerned we'll see some closures. Crazy week. Well, what do you mean by edgy? Because edgy to me means like, you know, um, uh, controversial. What do you mean by edgy? First and foremost. Um, so, um, if you mean like he's man, the thing is, I'm not sure about how much of a role Matt has with regards to shutting down studios. But like shutting down some of the studios would be my concern as well. Like especially some of the boutique kind of studios like Double Fine. Like how do they manage to thrive in the new structures that will be put in place? Because obviously like Double Fine doesn't necessarily make games that resonate with huge audiences or like maybe even medium-sized audiences to some degree. And it just kind of is what it is. But like the unbridled creativity that exists in Double Fine really seemed like something Phil at least wanted to nurture, right? And I do think there's a universe where Double Fine, with the absolute, uh, you know, unmitigated creativity that exists within that team, there is a universe where they would be able to deliver a game that I think would really, really land well. Um, but it's about like, do they have the wherewithal to keep in funding and investing in that kind of thing? Because, like Bluepoint, PlayStation shut down Bluepoint, and people pointed out that Bluepoint hadn't released the game for, however many years. Is that a case of mismanagement? Like, because I would have thought like putting Bluepoint on a Bloodborne remaster, if Sony owns the rights to that shit would have printed money, man. It would have printed money. So what went there? What happened there? Um, and then you look at it from an Xbox context, and it's like the initiative for me is one of the huge misses of Matt Booty's era, because it's like you had this um all-star team and it didn't work out. You built it in an area where there's notorious for top tier talent. You're an IP that kind of wrote itself, so you didn't have to come up with something new. And still, we ended up in a situation where, um, the studio got shut down. Um, sure, sometimes things don't work out, but they really, they really like plugged away at that, and for nothing to come of it is a pretty damning, right? But like I was saying earlier, like Matt Booty's had some wins, like the Forza, Minecraft, and that kind of stuff. But um, I hope it doesn't come to studio closures. Obviously, not no one wants to see that shit. I think like there are always situations I think where a studio can be saved. Whether it's they become a support studio or change their approach or find the right pitch or just need a little bit more investment to get pushed over the finish line, or make the right hires, you know, find the right writers or visionaries, like Chris Avellone, amazing writer. But that's there's so much there's so many ways that I think studio closures can and should be avoided, but we can only speculate as to what happened, man. Um, Rye Mouth dropped 10 gift memberships. Dude, I can't thank you enough. Thank you so much for that. Um, I want to address this question from Quadi Plus. Question: what do you know about European voice actors and Microsoft? And now this is interesting because this is something I've been researching. Is that a lot of the current Microsoft games seem to be using artificial intelligence to do some of the translation for their European games. Now, that's kind of like been the accusation that I've heard, like Overwatch and some of the Blizzard games. Um, some of the voice lines seem to be either translated with AI or even delivered by AI. Sometimes, like, I think people are really hyper vigilant about what could be AI, that maybe sometimes it's not true. So I'm trying to investigate some of that shit. But if that is what's happening, that's absolutely not okay. So I just want to like make sure that whether or not this is the quest or not, uh, this is the case or not right now. It's 5 a.m. It's starting to get late here. Um, Lauren Groger says, "Don't be so negative with yourself. You're doing great." Um, I appreciate that, dude. Um, I'm doing my best, man. I just, when like industry figures like Chris Avalon and like there's other people too who've like really aggressively called me out, like industry figures. And so I've done things I regret, like I shouldn't have leaked Pentiment to our assets, for example. I really regretted doing that because I was so like I was so caught up in making sure that we had our traffic that we needed. Um and like I didn't stop to think enough about how sharing this was kind of like robbing an artist of their opportunity to showcase their work. And like as someone who, used to be an artist to some degree, I used to make cartoons. Like I don't know if you guys know Cyanide and Happiness, but Explosm.net and all those guys, like I used to make cartoons adjacent to those guys. Like we're all in the same kind of animation community a long time ago. So I definitely should have been more cognizant of that. And it's something I deeply regretted, and that's something I haven't done since. Um, that was a huge fuck up by me. And I wish I could like apologize personally to the people I impacted with that bullshit. Um, but you know, I'm just trying. All I can do is move forward. There's no time machines, right? There's no time machines for any of us. Um, mm, mm, Alien M&M with the two. There's Euros. JEZ. Where is PlayStation going, do you think? I mean, this is a really great question, and honestly, I don't investigate PlayStation enough. So when I comment on PlayStation, often come across as a tourist because I don't really know the ins and outs of what's going on with PlayStation, like completely being transparent. But I do think like some of the issues facing PlayStation are the same issues that all the platforms that are sort of experiencing, which is a lot of the spend is diverged away from diversity, and everyone just wants to sort of play one experience over and over again. I'm doing it myself now with World of Warcraft. Like as I sit here playing this game, I'm kind of mindlessly playing it, right? Because the game's designed in such a way that you can play it mindlessly. Like I'm grinding reputation because I'm grinding reputation in WoW because there's a there's a coat I want. There is a coat that I want in WoW. Looks a bit like Neo's Matrix coat from the Matrix. And to get this coat requires days of grinding. So, I'm sitting here mindlessly playing the game, thoroughly aware that the game has been designed to make me mindlessly grind. Like, it's addictive, right? And I'm someone I've been playing this game for 20 years and I love it, And there's nothing wrong with enjoying and loving the games you play, you know. But, and I think for a lot of people where there's demographic shift and like there's so much chaos in the world, having just like mindless comfort food is absolutely a virtuous thing, And I do think like at least playing WoW and interacting and having friends, like I'm in a guild and I've got a clan and my clan's awesome and um, you know, I've made so many friends through this guild. I do think that's a much more productive way to be addicted to a platform than a TikTok or an Instagram. But Instagram and TikTok can be the same things. Like, if you use it well, you can develop a community there and, the same kind of thing. Maybe, you know, I met my girlfriend through SoundCloud, for God's sake. So it's not even like social media is bad. But I'm rambling a bit. But point being is that I think that the issues facing Xbox are the same issues that are facing PlayStation, where it's like, how do we orient our platform more towards the way people use the internet now? Because the way people use the internet now has completely changed. Whether it's like these addictive service games or addictive social media platforms, all that kind of stuff, all up. The way that people interact online has changed for better or worse. And I think Xbox and PlayStation are trying to figure out how to lean into that without without compromising the quality and the experiences that their current audiences expect of them. Which is why we've kind of got like WoW Classic, like a lot of old school WoW players. They want the old WoW experience. They don't want this mindless experience that I'm playing. They want the old experience. So Blizzard's giving them the old experience to some degree. I think that could be doing better there too. But we also saw Diablo 2 get an update for the first time in 25 years because a lot of Diablo 2 players, they don't like the way Diablo 4 is. Because Diablo 4 is like a modern game for the modern gamer, for better or worse. But better for revenue, but it hasn't been particularly good for fans who prefer the slower paced, more hardcore kind of experience that Diablo used to be kind of known for. And the fact that they've identified that as an issue, and yeah, maybe it took competition in order to do that, competition from Path of Exile, they've started to do that. So my hope is for PlayStation and Xbox both, is that they can figure out a way to engage Gen Z and Gen Alpha and, eventually Gen Beta and the kind of games they want without compromising the things that made PlayStation or Xbox great in the first place. More so PlayStation, I would argue, which is these tentpole industry defining AAA cinematic experiences, right? Um that's uh that's what I'd hope for PlayStation, but I think like it's tough, man. It's really tough to navigate that kind of shit. And I expect we'll probably see more stumbles before they figure it out. But they'll figure it out. I'm confident they'll figure it out, you know. We'll see what happens. I think when this AI bubble pops and some of the venture capital comes back, I think eventually like some of the existential issues that affect gaming, PlayStation and its partners and third-party developers, I think they'll abate and things will get better. But I also think some things do need a rethink, you know. But we'll see. Um and we've got JEZ tell Asher to bring WoW to console. Well, the next Xbox will have WoW by default. And one thing I noticed while I was at the WWE event, by the way, is I took my Xbox Ally with me to the WWE event, and I installed World of Warcraft on it because I wanted to do some dailies. Um, and I bought a mouse and keyboard with me because I was expecting like, shit, I'm gonna need a mouse and keyboard for this. But World of Warcraft now natively supports controller, Xbox controller. I had no idea about this, and you know, I couldn't I didn't set it up because you have to like manually you see all these buttons down at the bottom of the screen. You have to manually for it to work, you have to manually set up your keybinds. And I was just like, I ain't got time to set up all this stuff. But the joysticks worked and it felt good, you know. The joystick, like moving the character around with the joysticks instead of a mouse and controller, it worked straight away. And I had no idea WoW supported that. I thought you needed like an add-on for it, that console port add-on. So I do think WoW is gonna, eventually make a splash on console. At least with regards to Xbox, it'll be via BattleNet, I suppose in the short term. But eventually in the long term, I suppose like a more native experience, like with a UI designed for controller. Um, I mean, it's gonna happen, man. It's just a matter of time, I think. Um, so yeah, I think. What else we got here? We've got good old Collingwood with the 5. Good old Collingwood. Jez, would you still had fun had the car went left and you went to the Transport Fever 3 preview instead of 2 preview this week? Oh man, I didn't know there was a Transport Fever preview. But you know, I do appreciate those transport simulation games. Like I really wanted to try Mud Runner. I think it was Mud Runner. Or Snow Runner, one of those games. I think it was Jeff Grubb actually who was standing for that game that made me want to play it. I just sort of never got around to it, right? I do appreciate transport games. What I wish, right? There was a transport game, and here's like, if I ever made a game, this is kind of what I'd do. If I made a transport game, if I made a game, it would probably be a transport game, but it would be like you're maintaining a train in the zombie apocalypse, and it's kind of like a survival game meets traveling game meets simulation game kind of thing. That's kind of always been my dream, is to make a game like that. Unfortunately, too damn dumb to make a game, but um, you know, that'd be. I really liked it in I really like the vibe in Metro Exodus where you're on the train and you sort of, but the train wasn't really a system, but like I thought it would have been cool if, kind of like XCOM, I suppose, where you build up a sort of base at the same time as doing the sort of combat missions and stuff. I would have loved that. If there's a game like that that exists, I'm sure there is on Steam. Do let me know. Yeah, Choo Choo Charles is a pretty good example. Um, mm, yeah, I don't know. I thought Void Train was like that, although I haven't tried it yet. Yeah, I think Void Train is like that. That is another game in the eternal backlog. Um, I would love that shit. Um, but again, it's pulling myself away from World of Warcraft. I'm the problem, man. I'm the problem destroying the industry. Although I haven't played WoW for quite a while. Well, this is the thing about WoW, is like there are sort of there's times where there's nothing to do. You know, in the mid season or towards the end of the season, you do everything. It's like, well, I'm gonna stop playing now. Um, and that's usually when I hit the backlog and I start playing games that I've missed out on. Um, but there's a new expansion coming soon, so I'm just incredibly excited for that shit, man. I'm so excited for Midnight. I'm sort of like, there is an aspect of copium there because I'm sure like um there'll be things in the story that people don't like and stuff like that, and maybe like there'll be balance issues because they've changed a lot of the game and how it works. But right now, I'm just letting myself be excited for it. I'm just letting myself be excited for it. Yeah, Joaquin says that, man. Um, yeah. So, what else do you guys want to talk about? I mean, it's kind of crazy out there right now. There's like so much on the docket. Um, we're trying to figure out, I suppose, what the next year is going to look like, because this year was supposed to be all positives. Bethesda's got its 35th anniversary, I think. You've got Warcraft with its, I mean, you've got Blizzard with its 25th anniversary. No, 30th anniversary. Or is it 35? I can't remember numbers. But Bethesda, Blizzard, and Xbox all have anniversaries this year. And there's going to be a big BlizzCon. There's going to be stuff for ZeniMax stuff, and there's going to be, stuff for Xbox. So this was supposed to be a year where hopefully everything was just positives all up. But now, like, with all this shit, there's fresh uncertainty, I suppose. Um, so, you know, and there's like uncertainty for Xbox staff too. Like, they don't know what's going on. They don't know like if they're going to be huge structural changes and if everyone's going to get laid off and whole teams are going to be shutted down. And kind of reminds me of when Satya took over Microsoft. And I was writing about Windows Phone then, and people were, because the deal to buy Nokia was going through as Satya became CEO. And Satya put out this whole press release with, um, I can't remember his name. What was the CEO of Nokia? His name, um, was it Stephen Elop? Stephen Elop, I think his name was. It was, I think that was his name. Um, he was like, they did this whole, photo op where Satya and the CEO of Nokia was sort of walking around with in nature, looking thoughtful, and it was like, oh, this is going to be great for Windows Phone. And then what the fuck happened? He shut the fucker down, didn't he? He shut Windows Phone down. So, and all those people got laid off, lost their jobs, and it was just pure fucking chaos. So, it is kind of like, you want to be hopeful, but they've seen a changing of the guard. So there probably is gonna be like upheaval, and it kind of sucks that we're kind of going through that uncertainty again as a community, once again. But it sucks even more for people who like jobs are potentially going to be impacted by some of this shit, you know. So, oh man, I don't know. I feel for those guys, man. But you know, hopefully, maybe things end up being better for it. I don't know. I don't know. But Satya certainly didn't take the long view when it came to Jesus. I've never seen this before. Okay, this is completely new. I've never seen this before in the game in my life. But yeah, Satya certainly didn't take the long view when it came to Windows Phone, did it? Because I mean, look at the issues they've got now with artificial intelligence. Nobody uses Copilot because Gemini is pre-installed on every smartphone on Earth. If you're using Siri on iPhone, you're using Google Gemini. You're not using Copilot. So if they nurtured Windows Phone and doubled down on it, if they'd spent more money on it, you know, and actually nailed it, they might have a, a potential play there with artificial intelligence. Can you imagine if like the AI system was still called Cortana and it acted like Cortana? It'd be fucking way cooler than the horrible, you know, sort of sanitized weird Copilot thing they've got going on. You know, I don't know. Alien Eminem with the two says, "You're better than Schreier or Grob. You're an honest G." Nah, man. I mean, I love Jeff Grubb. Jeff Grubb's one of the few game journalists that I've really connected with in the past. I don't speak to him as much as I used to. Um, and one thing I really respect about Jeff Grubb is in the past when I've said dumb shit, um, and boy oh boy have I said some dumb shit. Um, Jeff Grubb spoke up for me, even though like it would have been the play to sort of ride the hate wave against me. Um, and I was absolutely stunned that he did that for me because he didn't have to do that shit, and it's something I've never forgotten and never will forget because, all the I was getting dogpiled and I did say something fucking stupid, um, because I am someone who comes from, poverty basically. And I tweeted something like game journalists get paid way too much. I think I said, you know, and that was an incredibly ignorant thing to say because I I come from, you know, I come from the West Midlands in England where things are pretty cheap, right? And I never even this is dumb as hell, but just goes back to my ignorance and my blind spots. I didn't realize like other places are more expensive to live in. Like if you live in New York or LA and things like that. Um, I mean, I'm sure I knew on some level, but I just sort of like ignorantly tweeted that out. And obviously game journalists didn't like that, obviously. Um, and I didn't say exactly that game journalists get paid too much. I just said something to the effect of that, you know. And I got dogpiled on, and to this day there are game journalists who hate me, and because of that, which is fair enough, that was a shitty thing to say by me. But like Jeff was like someone who was like, do we need to dogpile? Do we need to gang up on this guy? That kind of thing. So I really, really respected that he did that. Because he didn't fucking have to. He didn't fucking have to, and I will never forget that. That was really, really kind of him. Um, and that's kind of like kind of made me realize that, you know, um, people like that which make you realize you can do better when there is like a degree of like reaching out and being like, hey, you kind of fucked up here, you know. And Jeff was always one of the people who would do that for me. So, and again, like I don't speak to him very much anymore, which is a shame, but um, I really appreciate that aspect of him. But I don't know Jason Schreier that well, but obviously he's um absolutely prolific journalist, and he's kind of held up as the gold standard for, you know, scoops and that kind of thing. And I don't think you win those kind of sources unless you're like absolutely, you know, amazing at your job. So I don't really have a bad thing to say about him. But it's pretty clear that he doesn't like Xbox, right? I think that colours his coverage sometimes. My personal opinion, but um, Illegal Dad says, Jez, how much does fish and chips cost in Warsaw? So like my local fish and chip shop, I I don't buy fish and chips that often because I don't like chips. It might seem crazy, but um I don't like if I'm gonna buy fast food, it's probably gonna be, you know, kebab meat and salad maybe, or like a pizza. So I don't generally buy fish and chips, but I think fish and chips in like my local is like 3.99 maybe, 2.99 for a small, something like that. It's not so expensive. Um, but like I was just in New York, um, and I was actually thinking about this. I was like, going to London made me appreciate the prices in Warsaw, and then going to Germany and Bavaria made me appreciate the prices in London. Going to Iceland made me appreciate the prices in Germany. But then going to New York City made me appreciate the prices in Iceland. Like $10 for a bottle of water. And I know I know these were touristy kind of areas, but I've never seen $10 for a bottle of water in my life. You know, something on that scale. I was like, Jesus Christ, what are we doing here, man? So like, if I'm like a game journalist and I see some asshole from Britain saying like, you guys are being paid too much, where you live in a place where a bottle of water is $10, I can absolutely see why you get pissed off at them. And I think that's why like I just come across wrong sometimes because I make sweeping statements without fucking having the knowledge because I'm a dumbass, you know. And I'm trying to be less of a dumbass as we move through our journey towards the grave. I'm trying to be less of a dumb. Oh man. Yeah, if I'd love to speak to Jeff on Game Mess sometimes, but you know, I don't really I probably just don't really have compelling things to say a lot of the time, I think. Um yeah, I love those guys, man. They're really awesome. But, you know, I think it's tough for people to associate with me because I have been controversial and professionally, so I definitely feel that when I'm trying to get interviews for Xbox 2, it's like, oh god, I don't want to talk to JEZ, I think. Is what happens a lot. You know, and it's fair enough, you know. My own fault, but it's like I say, my North Star, I'm here for the Xbox community above everything else. It's not about the Xbox community is giving me so much. I'm here for the Xbox community above everything else. That's kind of my mentality on it. So as long as I'm hopefully doing a good job for the Xbox community in some capacity, then I'll accept the hate and, you know, the other shit that comes with it while simultaneously trying to improve my output. Um, so yeah, man. I think we're gonna call it there because it's 5:30 in the morning. But um, I didn't expect so many people to show up. So you know, I really appreciate all this. Oh, actually, there's one more super chat that I missed here from Woggerman. Sorry about that. Woggerman says, if you were planning a 25th anniversary event for fans in the industry, what would you do? Summer, November event, etc. Man, that's a really good question. I mean, clearly Xbox is doing something. Um, there's a lot of money being spent on BlizzCon right now and some of these other platforms. So, I think quite clearly they have identified like there's an opportunity here to really reconnect with the audience and the gamers because as we know, I think Xbox is kind of disconnected a little bit from the core audience. So I think this is an opportunity, like with Phil stepping aside, new blood coming in. It is an opportunity to reset, I think, to some degree. So I think like in my head, I think November's the best time to do this. Actually target the anniversary. Um, you would probably have more of the floor because you wouldn't have to compete with the big you wouldn't have to compete with or outshine the big announcements for Summer Game Fest. So you want your partners to have their time in the sun as well, right? Um, so I think the play for me will be to do it in November. You can do it in the run up to the Game Awards, build some hype for the Game Awards even if you wanted to do that. And you know, celebrate alongside some of the other great games coming out in the fall, if they land well. And then you can ride that kind of wave of hopefully excitement and positivity and sort of end the year on a high note. So I would say I would do it in November, sorry, around the time of the actual, around the time of the actual anniversary. Avoid Summer Game Fest, avoid other big events, and just let Xbox stand on its own for a while. And that's how I would do it off the top of my head. I'm sure there might be compelling reasons not to do that. But without the data and that kind of thing, that's off the top of my head how I'd drop it. But we'll see, man. And Godot Collingwood says, and then GTA stomps the anniversary feels. I don't know. Maybe you could integrate GTA with the anniversary, because GTA is like it's as much a tradition on Xbox as it is on PlayStation. GTA. It's not coming to PC. It's at least not initially. It's not coming to PC. It's going to be Xbox, PlayStation exclusive initially. So maybe you integrate that to some degree into the proceedings. Of course, if like they don't have marketing deals which exclude them from doing that, which they may well have. But um, I mean, there's no reason why they couldn't celebrate all that shit together as a sort of collective whole. I think. But, Didac Bro says, have Pay More show up with a tattoo. I think that'd be sick, man. But yeah, I mean, hopefully there'll be a lot of nostalgia, a lot of legacy celebrations. Saw like when Phil stepped down, the wave of Xbox alumni that came out to say good things, like Peter Moore, like Major Nelson. People past, present, and future. Like even people that have been laid off by Phil, like had like things to say. Um, Phil was like, you know, I think a lot of people feel like they can't agree with everything that Phil did, but I think the general consensus is he always had his heart in the right place, better or worse. And I think that's hopefully what Phil will be remembered for. But yeah, um, yeah. So I would think I'll call it there. Um, I've enjoyed hanging out with you guys tonight, and sorry it's been chaotic and um all that kind of stuff. Hopefully things, end up being in a better place, but we don't know. Still piecing things together as they come. I'm actively researching some of this stuff. Obviously, it's 5 in the morning here, so I'm limited with what I can do. Um, I am just one person now. I'd still at Windows Central. I still have like there are still people helping out, but like as terms of people at Windows Central covering gaming full time, I am the only person left. And I'm sure like my career is probably not long for this world either. But as long as I have a job and I'm able to do this, I'll still keep doing what I can to push for the Xbox community, and and try and improve in places where I've fucked up and failed, because God knows there's been a lot of them. Thanks guys for rocking with me, and keep it gaming, as Rand says. Shout out to you guys, and I'll see you next week for next Xbox 2. But, maybe you see me before then with a video on Windows Central Gaming. Maybe. We'll see what happens. But yeah, take care, guys. And I'll see you next time.